and welcome to the Military Reunion Network radio broadcast. I'm Sharon Danachek, your host, and it is so much fun today to stay home, I have to say, because we're actually going to visit with one of our neighbors down the street, and Meagan McGuire is joining us from Seattle Southside CVB. She is the Business Development Manager, and so Meagan, welcome and go Hawks.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I love talking to people from the neighborhood, and I know a lot about you, and we've hung out a lot at different events, and so but not everybody knows who you are and your story. So why don't we start there and have you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I've been with Seattle Southside about 2 years now, and before that I was with the Museum of Flight, which is actually I still represent it, still in the area, and it's the largest air and space museum on the West Coast, and I was there for almost 9 years. So I worked with a lot of military union groups there, and that's kind of where I got my interest in working with military union groups. And here we are.
and here we are. You decided to leave aircraft and start sharing the Seattle Southside story.
Yeah, I love working for the Tourism Bureau because instead of helping people and then giving them an invoice at the end, I can just help people, and I charge anything, and I'm just here to help.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the services with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, 99.9% of them are complimentary, and it's just, right? You're like Santa Claus, it's just, it's so cool. One of the things that we should probably clarify a little bit is kind of geographically where you're located and kind of where your neighborhood is as it relates to downtown Seattle and Pike Place Market and things, because there might be a little bit of confusion.
Yeah, so Seattle Southside is the area just south of the downtown Seattle core, and it comprises of 3 cities: SeaTac, Tukwila, and Des Moines. So it's right near the SeaTac airport, but it's outside of that downtown core, so you don't have the issues with traffic, parking that sometimes you get in downtown cores. And you also have more of, most of the hotels in the area have free airport shuttles since we are right near the airport. So it kind of lends itself to a different kind of clientele than the downtown area has. Then there's also the light rail station that is right in the area that takes people into the downtown core. So you can get on the light rail. It takes about 30 minutes or so, and then you can be in the downtown area without having to worry about cars or anything like that. And you can see Pike Place Market and Space Needle and all the awesome things that downtown Seattle has to offer.
Yes, I love the location of it. I absolutely love the location of it because it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You can go out and hang out in downtown Seattle and then get out of the city and enjoy more of the complimentary things that you're talking about, like the parking and a hotel budget that's a little bit easier to work with than maybe a downtown corporate footprint would be.
Yeah, what we like to call ourselves is the perfect home base for the Pacific Northwest, because we are so close to downtown Seattle, and we are also have really easy access to the freeway system that can get you to all the other cool things that the Northwest has to offer, like Mount Rainier or Tacoma area with its museums, or the Olympic Peninsula, all the various cool things about Washington State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in the Puget Sound corridor, so to speak. One of the things I was going to ask you about I didn't realize that you were with Museum of Flight for 9 years, and so this is going to be an easy question to answer. But when you were working with the Museum of Flight, when you were working with the military reunions, was your role there to get them booked and get them organized and get them into Museum of Flight?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. So, and that's actually how I encountered RFN. when I was with the Museum of Flight. I had a lot of military reunion groups contacting me, and I didn't really know how. I kind of treated them like every other group, booked them in, got a tour, things like that. And then I wanted to learn a little bit more about them, so I got involved with RFN and learned, the special needs some groups have, and how military reunion groups typically work with having the size of group and things like that, and their particular interests, and how some of them want to have memorials and special tour guides and things like that. So I was able to arrange all that stuff at the museum for them.
Were you surprised at the difference between military reunions and other, like corporate groups or other groups that are in the social market niche? Were you surprised at the difference?
Well, I kind of feel like every group has their own kind of special needs. And I don't know if I was surprised so much, but I was really interested to learn about the typical needs of every type of group, really. But at the flight, there was a lot of the military reunion groups, because it's just a really awesome attraction for people, especially interested in aviation and space and things like that.
Well, I was going to say from the home base in Seattle Southside, they can actually sneak up to, I have to give a plug to the Everett Boeing plant, and they can actually take the tour and then head back down as well.
Yeah, and that's actually something I worked, when I was at the Museum of Flight, I worked out a lot of different scenarios where they would go to the Museum of Flight in the morning, have a 1-hour tour, look around a bit, have lunch, either box lunches on a bus or have lunch in the cafe, and then they could take their box lunches on the bus and drive up to the future of flight and go to the museum and then do a tour up there. So we worked that out very often, actually. It worked out really nicely.
And I bet you still do that in your role with Seattle Southside.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of suggestions that I can give, are how to best utilize your time and what works best with different groups for the area. And that's one of my suggestions that I usually give.
And on the theme of suggestions, I want to see if you want to answer this in a couple of ways. Your old hat of working from the attraction side and your hat with the CVB side. I always talk with the military reunion planners about making sure they have all of the information before they pick up the phone to call, because it makes them come across as much more professional, and it helps you do your job better. And so I think my question would be, are there things that you want them to have at the ready? Are there questions that you're going to ask them that they're going to need to know about when they're contacting you at the CVB? And are the questions the same when they're contacting you, for the Museum of Flight, or are there different things that they need to have in the back of their mind?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
So my role here at the CVB primarily is to find the appropriate host hotel for the military reunion planner, and help them with an itinerary, and then usually I would refer them to the current group sales manager at the Museum of Flight to arrange tours and things like that, and discounted group rates. So when I have a military reunion planner contact me here at the CVB, the first things I would ask them is obviously their dates that they're looking at, if they usually have a banquet, and what their needs are for that banquet, so that I can find them a hotel that has the appropriate sized meeting spaces, what they need as far as a hospitality room goes, what type of banquets they have, whether it's like a buffet or plated, or what they usually spend in that, because that can help get lower rates, lower room rates, if you can provide that type of information. If they have any flexibility in their dates, because this area in particular, if you can book over a Sunday, you're going to get much better rates than if you book during the week. So if you can move your reunion from Thursday through Saturday to Friday through Thursday through Sunday to Friday through Monday, your overall hotel rate is going to be less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the type of questions I would ask when a planner contacts me here. When I was at the Museum of Flight, and this is what the current group sales manager there would do, we would ask what the group's particular interest is in, so that we can customize a tour. They give complimentary 1-hour tours.
Oh, wow.
Groups. Yeah, it's really great. And they try to customize it. So the docents that work there, they're all volunteers, and they either come from a military background, Air Force, or they come from they're retired Boeing employees, or just it runs the gamut. But they're all very interesting people, and they have a real passion for giving tours that are appropriate for groups and really engaging their audiences. So they want to know as much information about the group as possible when they get assigned a group. And then they do research, and they try to show them the artifacts in the museum that would interest them most. So that's kind of what I focused on when I was at the Museum of Flight, just about the group in particular. Also, obviously, things like if they wanted to arrange for a lunch or box lunches or things like that. But it was mostly about the group and what they particularly were interested in.
Mm-hmm. So as a silly follow-up question to that, and maybe not so silly, I don't know, but we talk about at RFN confams and during basic training, different attractions and the eye roll test. And if a reunion planner turns to his wife or significant other and says, "I'm so excited, we're going to," and they mention the attraction, and the response is the other person rolling their eyes, they know that they need to probably keep looking. With the Museum of Flight, I personally, I love aviation, and so it's fascinating to me, but it might not be so to other spouses or partners that are attending the reunion. And so when you were with the Museum of Flight, did you try to blend in the folks that maybe would have rolled their eyes just a little bit about going, because aviation is not for everybody? And so how did you work with that aspect of it?
Well, actually, I'm not really that interested in aviation myself. Wait, the group salesperson now is actually a pilot, so she's really into it. Oh. But, when I was working there, I was not really interested in planes and things like that. But what I was interested in was the stories of the people. Mm-hmm. Because, I'm a historian and anthropologist at heart, so all I want to hear about is what people, the way that they live their lives and what it was like for them. And the Museum of Flight does a really good job of telling those stories. Wow. So when I was with the Museum of Flight, I would get that question a lot. I know my wife would not be interested in planes. Well, I'm a good example myself, because I was not that interested. But
now I'm going to have to go back down and do the tour again to get the story part and yeah. Less ailerons and
exactly.
flaps and more family. So that'll be cool.
Well, they have a whole exhibit. It's called Personal Courage Wing, and it's World War I and World War II. And the whole point of that exhibit is they have amazing aircraft that are hanging from the ceiling and set in a diorama setting, so that you kind of feel like you're in the on the French front. Mm-hmm. But they do it in a way that tells the stories of individuals along the way. The mechanics, the pilot, the WASPs, everybody. It makes it a lot more interesting than just a plane.
You and I are so getting off topic, but that's okay. It's our show and we can do whatever we want. So, we were back in Washington, D.C. and went to the College Park Aviation Museum. And so they, Orville and Wilbur Wright used the runway in College Park to train the pilots that were going to be flying in the military. So they it was interesting because one of the things that they talked about was exactly what you were saying. It's the details that have stayed with me were not about, how long it took them to build a plane, but it was the stories of the pilots. And one of the things that they showed us was the pilots' leather jackets. And they actually would sew the maps inside their jacket because, if you're up there flying and you can't open a map, and if you do, chances are it's going to be blown away. So they sewed the maps into their jackets so they could watch their routes and, where they were going and what they were doing. And so it was kind of an interesting side detail that I hadn't really thought about before. So like I said, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's just exactly what I mean. It's much more interesting to learn about the people. Well, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and it's true. And, I think that rotates back, I think for both you and I, it's the same thing about the military reunions. The stories of the veterans
exactly.
along the way are just absolutely extraordinary. And so it's kind of cool to, to hear, what their chapters were like and what their stories were like from.
Yeah, the military reunion. Military reunion planners are my favorite people to work with because they have so many interesting stories. And you kind of feel like, as a supplier, I meet people all the time, meeting planners and tour operators. But sometimes when I meet, after meeting with a group of military reunion planners, I always feel like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
like you don't get to meet people like this all the time.
They're very inspiring.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they realize that or not. We've talked about, we've actually talked a lot about the museum, but one of the things that we were talking about with the military reunion is the memorial service and the banquet of that aspect of it. And in your the Seattle Southside neighborhood, is there a place that you recommend for memorial services to take place?
Yeah, there's a few places. It depends on the time of year. There's some really awesome outdoor spaces. So in the summertime or even into the fall, those would work. Some gardens, some beautiful gardens that people can just set up a memorial for free. The Museum of Flight actually is always what I recommend first. They can arrange sometimes their theater to be used for memorial services. So it depends on other people and attendance and things like that. But they have a beautiful theater. I think it seats almost 300 people. So, and that works really nicely. A lot of times I like to recommend that people go on the ferry from Seattle over to Bremerton because there are a lot of really cool things over in walking distance from the ferry dock in Bremerton. The USS Turner Joy, and there's a Navy museum, and you can have a really special memorial on the USS Turner Joy. And they can arrange for a lunch or a dinner as well. So, and then there's also some monuments there that you can do events at as well. So.
And see, you guys listening, that is exactly why you contact your Convention and Visitors Bureau first. And because people like Meagan have these really, really cool out-of-the-way spots and just things and tidbits and ideas and advice to keep reunions just very, very special and individual and exactly what you as military reunion planners are looking for. So it's really cool, Meagan. I love that. I'm going to have to go check out. You said it was the USS.
The USS Turner Joy.
Turner Joy. Okay. From your work at the CVB with the military reunion planners, are you finding that they're a little bit more educated now when they're contacting you? What is your feeling with their savviness of planning these days?
It depends on if I have originally met them through RFN. If I randomly get an email from somebody that maybe was searching the internet and came across our website and then sends me an email, sometimes they're not as prepared. So, but if I get a contact from RFN, they always have their stuff all ready to go. So thanks for that, Sharon.
Yeah. Well, we will continue our training with them, one planner at a time, and as they continue to train us, I think. So you're welcome for that, Meagan. You're welcome. So what other stuff should we talk about? Should we talk about your hotel partners, because that's such an important component of any CVB area, is the support that they get from the hotels.
Yeah, so there's actually this grouping of hotels down here in Seattle Southside is actually the second largest grouping of hotels in Washington State, second only to downtown Seattle.
Wow.
So there are a lot of hotels in this area. There's almost 60, I believe. Not all of them are appropriate for military union groups, and because of banquet space, or some of them don't have a lot of meeting space, or aspects like that. So there's about 20, I would say, that are very nice for military union groups, and it spans the range of hotels. There's the DoubleTree, there's a Hilton, there's a Marriott, full-service hotels, but then there's also some not full-service hotels like the Hampton, and then there's a Coast Gateway that have really nice options for military reunion groups. They don't have an on-site restaurant, but they have complimentary breakfast, and they have a small space that can be used for a hospitality room that they usually will give you for free or not very much at all. And then there's nearby restaurants that can be used for the banquet space. Or you could have a banquet at the Museum of Flight, or any other
That
location.
would be so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the Museum of Flight has, not to go back to that subject, but
yeah, that's okay.
They have 2 rooms that are large enough for banquets on the second floor that are lined with windows and overlook the runway. And then they also have all of their exhibit areas are rentable for banquets. So that's a really nice option. And when you rent a room for a banquet, you get free admission.
So they can actually blend. They can go and do their hour tour and then come back and have their banquet.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, perfect. So I have one last question for you, and then we're going to let you go and get back to helping all of the people that you've put on hold since we've had you on the phone. The last question is to talk about the importance of contacting the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the tourism bureaus first. We've gotten into conversations with military reunion planners where they've just gone directly to the hotel in the area, which is fine. And then something happens, and then they contact the CVB after the fact,
right,
and get them involved afterwards. So I'm giving you the floor to kind of share your preference and talk about why, and it's just other thoughts for people to think about as they're planning.
Well, like I was saying with the hotels, I am very familiar with all of the hotels and all their meeting spaces and all their capabilities. So when I have a military union planner contact me first, then I can steer them to the military union friendly hotels. So I think that's a big thing. If you contact the hotels first and it doesn't happen to be one that's particularly geared towards military union groups, you might not have your expectations met.
Yeah.
Besides that, there's a lot of other things that I can help with. Like, for example, I can put together a suggested itinerary for the group with the specific details of how long your reunion is, what kind of things you're interested in. So I can help kind of form your schedule. If a military union group is already scheduled for this area, I'm still happy to help. One of the things that I like to do is put together a welcome letter for everybody that is, whatever hotel you're at, it's specific to the hotel. So it's like it welcomes everybody, and then it tells you how to do things around the area based on your hotel. So, for example, if your group is not going to the Museum of Flight, but an attendee individually wants to go to the Museum of Flight, it'll say, okay, so here's how you get there. The DoubleTree will take you to the light rail station for free. Just ask them, and then you get in the light rail, and this is how you get there. So it's kind of specific information from your hotel, so that if somebody wants to do something, one of the most common attractions in the area, they'll have direct instructions. And then I also like to put together a welcome bag that has our visitor guide and a little lapel pin that says Seattle Southside, honors our military folks. I don't remember exactly what it says.
I don't know, but when I see you next, because I'm going to see you next week, and when I see you next, I'm hoping that there's an extra one in your bag, and so I can wear it proudly on my lanyard.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But you know what? I'm just here to help. So I can help most when they contact me first. But if it's already booked here in the area, I'm still happy to help as much as I possibly can.
And you know, one of the last points with this about contacting the CVBs first, and this is my big push over and above everything else. You know, besides all of the ability to save them so much time and expense, if they book with a hotel and let's say there's a change at that hotel, you guys will often call and reach out to the military reunion planner saying, hey, I just want to let you know that the Hampton is changing its flag. We're still here. We're on it. We're watching for you. And you know what I mean? It's just, so right, yeah. There's more boots on the ground for them.
That's right. Yeah. We keep an eye out for everybody that we know is coming to the area. And if you are through us, then we know that you're coming to the area. Whereas if it's not necessarily through us, if you went to the hotel directly, we don't have you on our radar.
Yeah.
So,
and they do not, although it's preferred, they do not need to be Seahawks fans to come to Seattle Southside. So we should just probably share that one as well. So anyway, Meagan, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we've kept you a little longer than expected, but it was all cool stuff, great stuff. And thank you for joining us. This is Sharon Danachek with Reunion Friendly Network Radio, and we were joined today by Meagan McGuire, Business Development Manager with Seattle Southside Tourism Bureau. Thanks so much. This is Sharon Danachek with the Military Reunion Network radio broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you all for your service. Keep listening and stay connected. Thanks so much.
You go to the doctor and get a diagnosis you didn't expect and you don't understand. If you're like so many of us, your first move is to search the internet for information on your condition. Wouldn't it be great if you could get real information? That's where MedAdvisor comes in, a completely free website that delivers the most up-to-date information from doctors, hospitals, researchers, and clinical trials worldwide. MedAdvisor is free, private, and personalized information about your specific medical condition. It's literally as simple as going to medivizor.com and signing up for free. MedAdvisor is free, easy to use, and saves you hours searching for information you can't find on your own. MedAdvisor is a private, personalized, and HIPAA-compliant resource. MedAdvisor, improving the lives of people with serious or chronic medical conditions and those who care for them. Your personalized medical information is a simple click away at medivizor.com. medivizor.com.